We are live again. It's back. It's Tuesday. It's what date is it? Bloody the 18th of March. It's the Sacred Relationship Lab where we talk about all things relationships.
Yeah, bring your questions, juicy, whatever you need to ask, bring them along, and we'll give it a good crack to answer them for you.
Yeah, we'll do our very best. I don't know if I'm stopping or any, but maybe the Wi-Fi might be a little bit temperamental today. Let's just see how we go. Should we just deep dive into a question? Let's just go for it.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Do you want to go first today?
Yeah, okay, I'll go first. So, got a relationship question from a woman. How do we get out of the monotony? How do we get the spice and the fire back in our relationship? So, have a crack at that one, Joanne.
How do we get out of the monotony and how do we get the spice back in our relationship? Do something different. That's the start of it. What are you doing every day? When I deal with couples, I find a lot of them are preoccupied on their phones or not very present, or they just got into a bit of a rut. And we can all get into a rut, can't we? I have to mix myself up from time to time so I can feel myself getting into that comfortable rut. And sometimes seems like it's going to take such an effort to do something different. It's like, oh, I'm going to be bothered. But actually, when you make the effort, the payback is exponential. It's way bigger than what you ever could imagine. So it's just about mixing it up and creating that space for each other, not just for adventures, but for actual talks. I think I read a oh no, I think it's Jordan Peterson. I was listening to him and he said, the most successful marriages and relationships, they talk, just chit chat for like 90 minutes a week. Just chit chat, which doesn't seem a lot, does it? 90 minutes is such a small percentage of the week. We've got 168 hours in a week, all of us. 90 minutes, he says, creates a really good relationship. And what does that do? That creates that bond of intimacy, doesn't it, as well? And you're like, hey, how are you? What have you been up to today? Just this general mindless chitter chatter where you can both just catch up, and it might just be for 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at night. But are you giving yourself and each other this space and this time? When you sit down to eat, are you present with each other? Do you still do nice things for each other? Maybe you could even sit down and do like the love language quiz again together and see if your love languages have changed a little bit. Because we get older, maybe physical touch was your love language, and maybe now it's acts of service. We do evolve. So get to know yourself and get to know each other again. And I don't know about you, Stacey, but when you go and do something different as well, like something that you've never done together before, for instance, me and my partner went temping bowling a few months ago because we try and do this date once a month. And we'd been temping bowling with kids. We'd been temping bowling with our nephews, but we'd never just been the two of us. And we had a right laugh. It was an hour, it was $20 or whatever each. And we had a laugh. And these moments, this effort that we do creates a longer lasting thing, because you don't just talk about it there and then. The lasting effects continue throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year, and build on that. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I love what you said there. We're creatures of comfort. Like we're creatures of comfort, like once we get in that comfort zone, we can, like Joanne said, get in that rut. And then there's this, kind of a fear of what if I give this and it's not reciprocated, or I'm not met, with what I want. Because once we get into a relationship, we move from this place of love and openness often to a fear of losing that person. So we're trying not to lose them, but we actually lose ourselves in the process. So you want to, expand your own life as well, have some hobbies, have some things that, like Joanne said, you're doing that you can come back and share with your partner. One of the things my wife and I did, we went whitewater rafting. What? If you haven't got something to talk about after you've been whitewater rafting and you're not on a high, and I'm not saying you have to do that, but like Joanne said, just do something outside the box. Put yourself outside your comfort zone too. There's nothing like a bit of adrenaline or a bit of a rush to spice things up and drop down the guard and really be able to be vulnerable with your partner and show them who you are and really experience who they are. So, effort for the men out there, effort's attractive, man. Like effort is attractive. You know, like I was just working with a client and I said to him, when was the last time you surprised your wife on a date? And he goes, oh, not since before we had kids. And I'm like, fuck, man, like organize something. So he organized something and it was a hit. And then he's like, shit, I might organize some surfing. So he went, took her surfing with the kids. And, you know, effort's attractive, man. So make an effort, do what you love as well, so that you've got things to come back and communicate. And, you know, if it's monotonous, it's dying. And if it's dying, it's always the hardest to get it going.
Mm,
But also, too, I think communication, sit down and just say, hey, let's have a chat, you know, like I feel like we're in a bit of a rut. It's become a bit monotonous, but stuck. How can we get out of it and start thinking about it? Start talking about it and then start actioning it. Because if you don't action something, it'll just stay the same.
yeah, I love it. I agree with everything. And another thing, that another trap I see couples get into when I work with couples is assuming and thinking that they know each other. Like, it's really nice to have that bond where we do know each other on a certain level. But remember, we are always evolving. We are always evolving, and we can build up a picture of somebody in our mind, in our heart, in our soul, and we think that's the truth.
Mm,
Get to really know each other again, because I can promise you, when you were dating or throughout the years, you've made some assumptions and you've got some things in your head which might not actually even be the truth. And then when you do find yourself going on to do different things, you find yourself talking about stuff, you know, sit down, have a conversation. Where do you want to be? I heard this beautiful thing the other day. I read this amazing Facebook post, I think it was. And I think the wife said to the husband, what would you do? How would you live your life if I died? And he rolled off how he would live his life. And it wasn't how they were living their life. And
mhm.
then he said to her, well, right back at you, how would you live yours? And she said something which was very similar to how he was to live his. And they found that they were living in this situation which they had both wanted. It was a beautiful life. There was nothing wrong with their life on the surface, but it wasn't really what was calling to their souls. So we forget to have these conversations on an ongoing basis with our partner because we assume, or we're too frightened to speak our truth, or even sometimes we don't even realize what our truth is. So when we can have these beautiful, deep conversations with our partner, like get a couple of questions and just talk about it. It brings you up to date with who you are now, with this new version of each other, which is exciting and thrilling, and get to know each other again. It's like dating for the first time.
Yeah, and a big one I share with the men, but this can apply to the woman, is be present. Like, fucking listen. Like, people say to me, how did you know I wanted that gift? Or how did you know I wanted to go to that concert? Or how did you know I wanted to go and do that experience? Because I fucking listen. And if I hear something, I make a mental note or I'll even write it down.
Mm.
Oh, they like that artist, or they want to go and do this thing, or they want to go to that concert. Write it down and then keep an eye out for it, because as soon as you connect with something, you know, if you buy a red car, all of a sudden the exact same red car that you brought's everywhere and you didn't notice it before. As soon as you start connecting to what that person, you'll see the tickets pop up on Facebook. Buy the ticket, surprise her. Same for the woman. Like, men still love it too, but pay attention. Pay attention to that person, because the love languages are great, but people will tell you everything that you need to know if you just listen,
Mm.
and listen to what they like, listen to what they're into, connect to what makes them, come alive, and then share those experiences with them, and you'll get to see who they really are. So just be present, and then, yeah, make an effort.
Yeah. And it's a big wide world out there. So go do some crazy stuff. Go and do what things that, that are exciting and thrilling and fill you with joy. There's so much on offer, and it doesn't have to cost money either. So just go and explore, even going on a hike and things like that, and getting mucky in nature is so much fun, but you find out what brings you joy, and we wish you luck. We can't wait to hear how it all goes.
Yeah,
Spice it
definitely.
up.
Fill us in.
We're going to jump ship now. We're not going to talk about love relationships. We're going to talk about parenting. So I've got one from a parent that says, I'm in despair. My teenager is suffering from poor mental health. What can I do? I don't know what to do.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I do quite a bit with youth, and youth are in a bad way, man. Like if
Mhm.
you're out there, they're in a really bad way. I think, one of the things is look at yourself, what's going on internally for you. It's a big thing because life's are really a reflection of us. If you're in a marriage or relationship with a partner, sit down and just talk about, how are we really getting on in our own internal state, and then start to work on that. And then one of the biggest things I've found is get them outside. If you can, get them down to the beach with no phone, get them out for a picnic, get them out fishing, get them down to the river, whatever it is, just get them out of that fucking room that they're in on that phone, becoming a phone zombie. Get them out doing something, and you don't have to make it all about them, but just say we're having a no phone date. We're having a no phone date. A big one for me was we always had dinner at the table with no phones. Like connection. If they're going into their mental health issues, they're losing also connection. And nature, connection, breath work, cold water, all these things are beautiful ways to regulate the nervous system. Beyond whatever's going on at the level, but we're not ready to go there yet. But get them outside, get them functioning, support them, love them, and just take it gently because it's a really tough place and space to navigate. But my biggest thing would be try and get them out of that house, try and
Mm.
get them off that phone, and spend a couple of hours outside, and they'll kick up a stink, man. I'm telling you. When you say like we're going out, you got no choice or whatever, however you want to do it. I don't know how old they are. They're gonna like, oh my God, I don't want to go. Rah, rah, rah. They're gonna throw a tantrum, and then I don't want to leave my phone. By the time they get home, they don't want to leave you alone.
Mm.
So, and if you need some more advice on that, please drop in.
Mm. Yeah, no, I work a lot with teenagers as well, and you're right. We are in a bit of a mental health crisis, especially here in New Zealand, and I believe it's the same around the world. I do deal with teens around the world as well, but it's I think just to remember as well, the teenage years are traumatic for our teenagers. And you hear all these sayings, or toughen up, or it wasn't like that in my day. I think we're so past all of that. And there's a lot of wounded adults walking around because they didn't get compassion while they were teenagers. They were just told to toughen up, or they were in environments that were not helpful, whether it be school or home or society. Having just that empathy and compassion for our young people, that their brains have shut down for a wiring. Their frontal cortex, their intelligent part of their brain, is no longer working. So they are constantly in their emotional brain, pretty much 90% of the time. That's huge to know that everything is emotional. They think everybody's angry. Even if you just have a nice voice and you say something to your teenager, they think you are angry. Like, my kids still accuse me of being angry. And I'm like, no, just saying something, but whatever. But I understand that they're in that part of their brain. um yeah, and and it's heartbreaking when our children go through stuff. The old saying, you're as only as happy as your unhappiest child. And I've had children with poor mental health, and it's soul destroying at times, but the best thing I can say to you is to do nice things for you as well.
Mm,
Put yourself in a space. Do as much work as you can on you, because you are not your child and your child is not you.
yeah,
It feels like they are, but they are not. They are autonomous humans who have chosen to come into this world the same way we have. And the best thing we can do for our kids is to be the best role model we can be,
yeah,
to be at the highest vibration we can be.
yeah.
So if you can do that for you in any which way, whether that's support from loved ones, talking to people, getting some professional help, finding joy, connecting in with your soul, doing your own breath work, whatever rituals help you elevate your frequency, so you can be there. And trust that it is a journey, because it is a journey. We're all on a journey. And as Stacy says, some of the best things we can do is to get our teens outside. In fact, it works for us. I watch I've got stepchildren as well. I watch them when they've been on their devices. They might have been gaming it might be a crappy day, they've been gaming, they come down, they can't literally even talk.
Yeah.
They're like mute. They are in this strange, you can feel like, I'm an energy person. I can feel this weird energy. It's like they are zombies. But send them out and play golf. Comes in happy as Larry, chats away.
Yeah.
It's a game changer. It's a game changer for me. If I'm in a shitty mood, I go for a walk, I come back 45 minutes later and I've sorted my stuff out.
Yeah.
It's fresh air, Mother Nature is so healing. So I totally back Stacy up with that. The more you can get them outside, the more you can get them in a place where they feel safe as well, because nature often feels safe because you're not looking at them, you're not having that direct conversation with them like this. It's, they could be out and about, you could be chit-chatting. It's nurturing to the soul. And if you do want to have a chat with them, get them in a car and have a chat, because they talk a
Yeah.
lot when they're in a car.
Yeah. And there's something to that, when they're looking at screens all day, their vision is narrowed. So think about our fight or flight system. We're going to focus on anything that's a threat. So if you're sitting in the room looking at your phone all day with that, you're in fight or flight and you haven't even moved out of your bed, right? And so you're jacking up your nervous system, the cortisol, the adrenaline. Your mind is trying to figure out, what do I do with all this information, all this input? How do I deal with it? Where does that go? What do I do with that? So take out trauma for a second. We just live in a world where there's massive stimulation. When I do my sessions with my clients, I literally, after 2 or 3 sessions, I jump in the car, I walk out to the waterfall, I have a swim, I jump in, stay there for a few minutes, I come back, I feel renewed.
Mm-hmm.
Even at the end of the day, I'll do that. So try that for you. And then see, and another thing, like Joanne said, we're living in such a completely different world now. We never had phones like this. We never had gaming. We never had the level of stimulation, online bullying, all this stuff. It was interesting the other day. We've got a community page in our local town, and some young some young boys were playing a bit of chicken with the train, as you do when you're young kids. You're going to do some crazy shit. The adults on that page, give them a fucking hiding. They need to kick up. There was 30 or 40 adults that had dropped in saying they needed some kind of physical abuse done to them. And it was the first time in ages I jumped on and I said, are you actually listening to what you're saying? Like, that is abuse. If I come and did it to your kid, you would hit the roof. So, just also keep an eye on what's going on in your child's life. What's going on? People used to say to me I was crazy, but I used to take my kids' phones off them at night up until they were 16, 17. I'd say they go in the box, you don't get them back to the morning, because if they didn't, they'll wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning, stay on their phone till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, get all jacked up. Their sleep goes. Once their sleep goes, it's a downward spiral. But just be gentle with yourself as you navigate the space, because it's such a crazy time we live in.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying about the phones at night. I remember saying to my youngest, because he wanted to take it to bed one night, and I said no, and he was like, well, I want to. And I was like, why? And he went, well, everything doesn't start until 10 o'clock. And I'm like, not in this house. Everything stops at 10 o'clock. That's when all their mates get online, because they all obviously go to their bedroom and they all start talking. I'm like, you don't need to be talking at 10 o'clock at night. No way. Calm
Yeah.
it down. But you're right. And I think, as much as I love education and I love learning, our schools are antiquated, most of them, and they're not a healthy place for most of our children. So our children are going to these establishments, which, let's face it, 70-80% of the kids don't like learning the way that they're being made to learn. And a lot of them are just fighting against the system now. I know so many kids that are either homeschooled or just won't go to school, but then have studied later on. And, parents get quite caught up on that. I don't know if this is your situation, but it is just something I wanted to mention. Parents get quite caught up on, they need to go to school, they need to do that. And I just ask you the question, why? Why do they? Why do
Yeah.
they need to go to school?
If
I took a stand with my daughter when she was going to school, and I didn't make her go to school. And I personally think she wouldn't be alive today if I made her go to school. So I made that call, and I will stand by that decision no matter what people think of me. I don't care. I was like, no, I asked the school, I said, can we have some, conversation? Can she maybe do this, this, and this? And they were like, no. I was like, okay, well, you play it your way, I'll play it mine.
Yeah, I went through something similar with my son. At 15, he's a extreme sports athlete, and he was on the verge of cracking some pretty big opportunities, and he was hating school. And I went to the school and, to find out about getting him out, and they said no. And I said, why? And they said, no, because he's not a naughty kid. Then I had to have a talk with the education board, and the lady said I was the worst parent ever. And in the end, I just said, fuck you.
Mm,
He's my child. I'll take the consequences and I'll stand up. Because I said, if I came to you and said he was going to go and play for the All Blacks, you'd fucking have your name all over it and be sending him on his way with a pat on the back and a big write up in the paper. And in the end, the principal said that. But yeah, like if everyone, if the bulk of society and schools as vibrations off and your kids are going into that environment, it's huge. So yeah, create some rituals, create a really neat environment at home, and yeah, like Joanne said, be gentle with yourself. It's such a crazy time to be navigating as a parent. I'm glad my children were just before that time, but they've got a few things that they still deal with. But those phones, man, you got to understand that everything on social media or everything is an attack,
mm,
unconscious an attack on our young people. So they're getting messaging, subliminal messaging, they're getting repetitive messaging, they're getting bombarded with information, violence, pranks, all the stuff that on the surface seems so harmless and funny. But then your kid's afraid to go to school unconsciously because they're afraid they're going to be the one that gets
mm,
pranked and gets hurt or gets made fun of. So yeah, just do what you can, get
yeah.
support around you and get out in nature and um,
And
be,
I don't know
be
about you, Stace, but when you work with young people, like I've worked with quite a lot over the years, and people have literally handed over their kids to me with big trust, and I'd be like, okay, thank you, throw me in the deep end. It's been fine. But the thing I've found with most teenagers and most people, to be fair, is they just want to be seen, heard, and understood. Even if you don't understand, even if you can just hear them and see them in how they're feeling. Because, we've got a little bit of time under our belt. We know that perhaps other people feel the same as us. But even as adults, we often keep it to ourselves because we don't want to share it, because we might look stupid or we might get abandoned or we might be rejected. Teenagers, they haven't got this life experience under their belt. And so they feel extremely lonely, feeling like that in their little world. So if they can just find someone, if you've got like a mentor that they can talk to, an older cousin, an aunt or an uncle that they love, or somebody professional like us, or somebody else, if they can just find somebody that they can be validated, be really seen and heard. And remember, as a parent, sometimes you can't do that. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. I can coach other people's children and mentor them, but not my own. I just have to be a mum to my kids, and that's life. I have to take on the mum hat, which often means backing off and don't give any advice and keeping my bloody mouth shut because they don't want to listen to their parents. Everything we say is almost like, you know, putting them down almost, even that's not what we're doing.
yeah.
So if you can find somebody for your teenager to talk to hang out with, that would be really beautiful as well. Because I think it just almost, I watch the teenagers when I work with them, and it's literally, I watch their body language totally change. They can't hide things as well as we can. And they blossom as soon as you go, oh, right, okay, without judgment. There's no judgment. You shouldn't feel like that. It's just an openness. All right. And if you share some stories about how you felt as a teenager, you see them soften, and it's like such a relief that, oh my God, I'm not going mad. I'm not the only one. And it just gives them that little bit of reassurance.
Yeah, I just run a breathwork session for a bunch of seniors, the senior class in the local college here. And I've been coaching kids since my kids were little, 20 years of being around kids, and you go out there and you look on the surface and you see the bubbliness and you see the excitement and the craziness. Uh, Do you know how much energy they're putting into putting on the show? One of the number one human fears is being exposed.
Mm,
And as soon as they lie down and breathe, you can see the shallowness that they're breathing, that they've been breathing was they're shaking, they're nervous, they're fearful. So this is what your teenager will be going through. because we're tribal beings. Think about it, you know, we all had those kids that were the popular kids. Well, the internet now is full of popular people, and we want to live up to that level, to be liked, to be accepted, to fit in, to
Mhm.
not be different. It's a lot of pressure. So, you know, have fun, get outside, book some holidays, go camping, purposely make it so there's no phones or coverage and things like that. And just, yeah, that's probably the best advice I can give.
Yeah. Look after yourself, make yourself a priority as well, because that's really important. But thank you for sending the question, because again, it's going to be a question that will resonate with a lot of people. You know, as we said, Stace, there's a lot of crisis in our young, their mental health and things like that. So that's a question that will definitely hit home for quite a lot of people, I would imagine. And I know on my personal journey with my children and mental health and just general issues, if I hadn't have done the work I'd done, I wouldn't be able to hold them in the space I can now. Like I can literally hold them without falling apart, you know, whether we're in hospital or whether we're sitting around the dinner table or whether we're on the phone, I can actually hold them in that space. And I'm so grateful for the work I have done so I can be there in that space and not fall apart, because it is scary sometimes. So we honor you.
Yeah, and if you want us to expand on it, or you have any more questions around that, or that's brought something up and you want us to go deeper, please reach out. If Because, you know, like Joanne said, a lot of people watch this and they don't ask questions, but they want to. So, you know, let us know. Yeah, that helped, or could you expand on that more? Because, you know, I wish I had some of this stuff, or had the ability to connect into this stuff when I was a parent, you know, which just wasn't around. And you didn't ask your friends about it, you didn't talk about it, you just sucked it up and, you know, did what you could. So,
Here, and it doesn't come with a rule book. And even if it did, it would be outdated so quick anyway, because we just got to keep up with the times. So keep sending your questions, keep giving us feedback, and we'll be here again next week. Thank you so much, everyone.
thanks, guys. Good to see you. Thanks for the questions. And yeah, I'll see you next week.